Hey guys, welcome to the ACH Automotive channel. Today we're working on our 2017 Ram 1500 and we're going to be doing the front brakes. Before we start, I want to go over a couple of tools. Well, actually we have a bunch of tools that we'll need for this job. We'll need a small torque wrench that'll be used for the caliper to the caliper slide bracket bolts, the smaller bolts. We'll need some C-clamps or a caliper compressor if you have one. I don't have one, so we're going to use C-clamps. We'll need a wire brush to clean the slides where the pads sit. We'll need a 3/8 breaker bar and we'll use this to break the bolts loose that hold the caliper to the slide bracket. We'll need a 1/2-inch ratchet and a 3/8 ratchet to continue to remove bolts. We'll need a 1/2-inch adapter and a 22mm socket to remove the lug nuts in the tire. A short stubby adapter, 1/2-inch if you need one to get the caliper bolts off. We'll need a socket, a 13mm 6.3/8 drive socket to get the caliper bolts out of the slide bracket, and we'll need a 21mm 6.5-inch drive to get the slide bracket off the knuckle. We'll also need a pair of needle nose type pliers and a screwdriver to get the clips that hold the rotor on. You may not need both, but depends on how you get them off. We'll need a small breaker bar, or not breaker bar, but pry bar to get the caliper off. We'll need a 3-pound hammer to help get the rotor off the hub assembly. If you have a puller, that can be substituted for that. You will definitely want a larger torque wrench to tighten the caliper slide bracket to the knuckle. Breaker bar may be handy, or an impact gun, and we'll definitely need a 17mm thin wrench to get the caliper slide bracket, to get the caliper bolts and the caliper apart. You'll need a size 17. These are Husky wrenches, does both SAE and metric. Couple supplies you'll also need. One other thing you'll need is a bungee cord or a caliper holder. I just have a bungee cord. And if your rims have a security bit, you'll need that as well. I also throw in some hearing protection and some eye protection, although not shown here, for taking the rotor off. Supplies. I use a little bit of CRC ceramic fortified brake grease for the calipers. Some Never Sees. This can has seen better days. Some Croil. This helps break the bolts loose, etc. And we'll definitely need some brake clean. We'll also need our Powerstop pads and our Powerstop rotor. Now, I've already done the driver's side, so that's why there's only half the supplies left. If you're doing it in your driveway like I am, you'll want a jack, and you'll want a jack stand to put under the truck so it doesn't fall. And now we should be able to begin our project. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take our 22mm socket and our breaker bar along with our security bit. We're going to break all these lug nuts loose. Then we're going to slide the jack and the jack stand under and get those positioned, and we'll take the tire off and we'll slide it under the truck for safety, and we'll work on getting the rest of the brakes. We've got our tire off. We've got the truck up on the jack stand's in position. One thing that I do is I will turn the wheel all the way to the left, so it's easier to actually get to the caliper and the bolts and all that stuff. So let's go move the tire. Let's go turn the wheel. Put our key in here. Okay, and you can see while we're over here, I've already done the driver's side. Put our key back. And this will give you a little extra, doing it this way will give you a little extra room to get the breaker bar and all that stuff in there. The first piece we're going to do is we're going to take this caliper assembly off. And to do that, this is where you need the thin wrenches. So you're going to use a 17mm thin wrench and a 13mm 6.3/8 drive socket. We're going to crack these bolts loose. We're going to take the caliper and we're going to tie it up out of the way so that it doesn't get damaged. Then we need to take the slide bracket off here. The slide bracket's held on with two 21mm bolt, 6-point bolts. You'll need a 1/2-inch drive for that. Then for some reason on the front, the rotors are held on with these two of these clips. The back rotors only had one. So we'll, just to recap here real quick, we're going to pull the caliper off, we're going to pull the slide bracket off, we're going to pull these two clips off, and then the rotor will come off, and then it'll all go back together. We'll have to compress the caliper as well. So let's get started. Take our 17mm thin wrench, and it sits in there like that. Take our 3/8 breaker bar and 13mm 6-point 3/8 drive socket, and we will break that loose like so. Just be careful. You may want a little stubby extension in here because the caliper line is in the way a little bit. There we go. That's loose. Let's do the bottom one. Same thing. There we go. Okay. Just go back and forth, make sure it's free first so we don't snap anything. This is where I'll swap over to my 3/8 drive ratchet. You'll also still need your, I also do the bottom bolt first, and I've said this in other videos, just because then the caliper doesn't go flying. Although you shouldn't have that problem here because we're going to need the breaker bar or the pry bar to get it off. Get it finger loose. These bolts aren't very big, so you don't want to break them. I'll go back to the top and do the same thing. Okay, top bolt's out. Take our pry bar here, and I just kind of go in very, very gently and just walk it back and forth. You don't want to break anything. You can try on the bottom as well, or on the side, and just it just slides off. It's just, you got to break the corrosion from this truck's got 67,000 miles on it now. So there we go. Should pop right off there. There we go. And then I just put the caliper up here however you can get it. I'll take my bungee cord. If you have a caliper hanger, that works much better, but I don't have caliper hangers. Just go around the side here. And we'll just loop it back around the top so that it doesn't go anywhere. Now what we need to do is take our 21mm socket and the breaker bar, the 1/2-inch breaker bar. We're going to break those two loose. Again, I take the bottom one out first, then the top one. The slide bracket should come off. Just kind of come in here like this. These are going to be pretty tight because they got Loctite on them. Alright. That one's loose. Let's do the top one. This one here so you guys can see better maybe. Okay. Now we've got the bolts cracked loose. We're going to pull them off. Bottom one's off. Not as much not as much Loctite and different color Loctite than on the back. Top bracket off here. Top bolt's off. Take our slide bracket off, and those pads, they're not too bad. I mean, if we weren't going into winter, I probably could have gotten a few more miles out of them, but they were squeaking as well, and I'd rather change them now than when there's a foot of snow on the ground. So What we need to do now is get these clips off here, and you can do that with either a screwdriver or a pair of needle nose pliers. I just grab them and kind of twist them backwards a little bit. You don't have to reuse these. I will if they're in okay shape. They're just merely for holding the rotor on during assembly. Once you get them started, you can usually unscrew them like a lug nut. Like I said, this truck has 2 on the front for some reason, and the back only had 1. This is where you'll want your gloves. Okay, there's 1 clip off. We'll put that aside. Work on getting the other clip off here. Okay, second clip is off. This is where you're going to need your hammer and your eye and ear protection, because the rotor you're going to find, especially if you're up in New England or the Rust Belt like I am, is stuck to the hub. So what you can do is you can put a little Croil in there, let it soak, and then what I'll do is I'll take a 3-pound hammer and I just tap the back here where the slide bracket was, rotate it, tap it, and do it until it pops off. They do make rotor pullers. I don't own one, and they basically do the same thing. I'm not reusing this rotor, so I don't care about it. If you're going to reuse the rotor, don't do that. I have brand new rotors, so. Okay, got our eye protection on, got our hand protection on. We're gonna get our hearing protection on here in a second. We're gonna get this rotor off. Okay. You kind of look goofy, but it works. Let's take a little Croil in here, just a little bit. Just let it soak around for a minute, and then let that soak in. Then again, we're just going to take our 3-pound or engineer's hammer, and we're just going to tap on the back side of this and turn it, and you'll be able to see the rotor will start to walk off. So let's get this started. There you go. I don't even have to turn it. That one came off very easily. Prevent the rotor and the tire from sticking, and I've gone over this in my other brake videos. I just put a little Never-Seez around the hub, little on the hub, and once the rotor goes on, I'll put a little more just around the outside, and then everything should come apart pretty easily in the future. Because if you don't do that and you're in Rust Belt states like myself, and hopefully that light's not blinding you guys, if you're on the side of the road trying to get your tire off, it could be fun. So, all right, let's get our Never-Seez here. Let's get our new rotor. Never-Seez. Just a little. Doesn't have to be a ton. You just want enough in there to keep the rotor from corroding and rusting to the hub assembly. I just put a little bit in there like that. Just a little bit. All right. Let's grab our brand new Powerstop rotor here. And these guys have a direction to them. You'll want to pay attention as you're working on it. This one's labeled passenger side front. It has to do with the slots and the drill holes. So while we're over here, we'll grab our rag, grab our brake clean. Over there. Let's leave our rotor on the bag so it doesn't get dirt in it. Just gonna clean it off, get all the machining oils and stuff off of it. Both sides. Now we'll slap our rotor back on here. Like so, there we go. Got our rotor back on. Let's find our clips here. There's one. And there's two. Now we've got our brand new rotor installed. Let's go over to our makeshift workbench here and put the pads in the slider assembly, and we'll put that back on, and this is moving along. You see that's what it looks like with the new rotor on. Again, just a little never seize in there will help it from seizing to the hub assembly, so you don't have to use the hammer next time you take it apart or get stuck taking the tire off. So let's take our slide assembly over here. Get our rest of our stuff out of the way. All right, let's get our Powerstop Evolution pads out here. Take our clips out. And our pads. Rest on over there. Oops. Pads aside. Now, we want to make sure we get the clips in the right spot. These are pretty simple to do as compared to the rear ones. We may want, maybe where I want our hammer again. Doesn't have to be this big, it's just got to tap it. Normally I would not do this on a tailgate, but this tailgate is thoroughly destroyed, and it was not by me, so not too upset about it. There we go. All right, pads are out. This is where we'll take our wire brush. We'll just clean the channels up here. A little bit, both sides. Get all the crap out of there. Same thing on this side. Do all of them. Now, these clips sit on the ears of the pads, so we'll put a little lube in here to allow it to move around freely. Take our CRC ceramic brake grease here and just put a little dab in each side of the bracket. Oop. And just coat it around a little bit. You probably want to wear rubber gloves if you have them. I didn't think to do that for this. It's basically just a little white grease, so it shouldn't hurt you. All right, there we go. Now we want to take our pads here, our old ones, and we want to find our new ones, match them up, like so. All right, there we go. Now we need to take our clips, and they've got to go on the same way that the original ones did. We'll slide them on there like that. Again, these guys are fairly easy as compared to the back. The backs have side-specific clips. These do not. There we go. Slide them on. You see, they just sit over the end of the. Start tightening these bolts. There we go. Okay. Now we've changed the rotor, we've changed the pads. What we need to do now is we're going to get our big torque wrench, torque these down, and then we're going to work on our caliper. Grab our torque wrench here, and as I've stated in other videos, we're going to start off. I start off around, these bolts have to be torqued to roughly 130 foot-pounds. Because I've had issues with breaker bars in the past, where they, these cheaper, ones are not always calibrated correctly. At least I've found. So we'll start at about 90 foot-pounds, because that is where I feel comfortable with it. There we go. Okay, there's 90 on the bottom. And this would be a lot easier if you had a lift, because you wouldn't have to fuss with getting the tire or the wheel in the right spot. There's 90 on the top. Let's go to 130. There's 130. There's 130. Okay. Always remember to undo your torque wrench when you're done. Otherwise, if you leave tension on it, it will damage it. It's not good for it. So you always want to take tension off your torque wrench when you're done. Now we've got to go get our C-clamps and one of the old brake pads, and we're going to compress the pistons, slide the caliper back on, put these this top bolt and bottom bolt in, torque them down, and that's pretty much it. We can throw the tire back on and see how it does. Typically use the back one, so it doesn't matter. I take the clips off because those will just get in the way. You can also use a block of wood. I don't have one today, so we're going to use the old brake pad here. And again, if you have a caliper compressor, that's probably the more appropriate way to do it, but I don't have one. Hopefully I can do this and show you at the same time. So I put the pad back in there like that. This is going to be kind of hard for me to show you. I've got it set up. What I'll do is I just take one C-clamp, kind of walk it a little bit, switch to the other one until the pistons are both in to their respective spots. There we go. All right, now we've gotten our pistons back in the slot here. Take our stuff out. I will also put a little grease on the face of the piston just to help it move. So we'll do that, and just it's cold. This stuff doesn't want to come out of the tube. Just a little dab, and we'll spread it around so it's even. Like so. Doesn't have to be a lot, just a little to give it a little bit of lubrication. Now we can get our little 13mm bolts ready here, get our ratchet ready, find our thin wrench, 17mm, and we can take our caliper and we can slide it back over the pads, push the slide in, and let's get the top bolt in first, and then we'll worry about getting the bottom one situated. Okay, there we go. Push the bottom slide in, get that situated. Take our 17mm thin wrench here, hold it in place. Okay, there's the top one. Let's do the bottom. Now we can torque these bolts down to about 24 foot-pounds, or it's like 264 inch-pounds. My wrench only goes to 250 inch-pounds, so we will torque those down. I'll put a little pressure on the brake, make sure everything looks good, and then that's pretty much it. Okay, got our torque wrench dialed in here. Okay, yeah, I mean, 24 foot-pounds or 250 inch-pounds is pretty much nothing. It's pretty much just hand tight, and you don't want to go much more than that, because you break those bolts. All right. Well, guys, that is how you change the front brakes in your 2017 Ram 1500. The driver's side is the exact same. I've already done that because that was my practice side, and because I haven't done the brakes on this truck before. This is the first time I've done them. I'm gonna go step on the brakes, make sure everything feels good. We're gonna put the tire back on. I'm gonna take it for a ride. But that's pretty much how you change the front brakes on this 2017 Ram 1500. I'll put the link to all the parts and stuff I used in the description. I've already done the back brakes in one of my other videos. You can see that. I'll put the link up here, or try to remember to do so. This truck has Powerstop brakes in all four corners, and I just find their value-wise, I think I paid like $380 from Summit or something for the four corners for the set pads and rotors and stuff, and I've been pretty happy with them. So hopefully, at least in the backside, so hopefully the front side performs just as well. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever. Leave me a comment if you got a question. And you can also follow along on social media at ACH Automotive. And thanks for watching, guys, and stay tuned for more automotive related videos.